French security forces once again targeted by terror. The Interior Minister may extend France's state of emergency after a failed attack on the Champs-Élysées. Representatives from the UK and the EU square up in the first formal day of Brexit negotiations. But who backed down first? We'll have a roundup of the day's talks. And raising his profile, high-flying Emmanuel Macron takes to the air over defence aviation at the Paris Air Show. Good to have you with us. I'm Belle Lupton here with a news roundup for you at 3 a.m. Paris time. And we begin here in the French capital, where the counter-terror prosecutor has opened an investigation after a car rammed into a police convoy on the Champs-Élysées earlier. The car's driver was killed in the attempted attack. There were no other casualties. The Interior Minister has told press this latest incident justifies extending until November a state of emergency that's been in place in France since November of 2015. Catherine Clifford brings us up to date with the investigation.
The body of the attacker lies on the ground as police investigate his car.
Today at around 3:40, we had a squadron of riot police drive down the Champs-Élysées. A Renault Megane drove past on the right and struck the vehicle at the head of the squadron. The Renault Megane caught fire and soldiers started to intervene.
A passerby captured the immediate aftermath of the ramming on video. No bystanders or police officers were hurt in what Interior Minister Gérard Collomb described as an attempted attack. He said the car was loaded with weapons and gas canisters.
Once again, the security forces in France have been targeted with this attempted attack on the Champs-Élysées. There were some weapons, some explosives in this car, which could have caused the car to blow up.
Bomb disposal experts were sent to the scene to make sure the car posed no further threat. Anti-terrorism prosecutors have opened an investigation. A police source said the man had been known to security services. The incident occurred just a short walk from the Élysée Presidential Palace and the US Embassy, close to the Grand Palais exhibition hall. The police and the army have been repeatedly targeted by extremists in France. This comes 2 months after a policeman was shot and killed and 2 others injured, also on the Champs-Élysées, in an attack claimed by the Islamic State group.
Almost a year since the UK voted to leave the EU, representatives from both sides have met in Brussels for the first day of formal negotiations. It was a carefully choreographed event with an exchange of gifts to start and handshakes to finish. But amidst all the pleasantries, a timetable was decided and, as Catherine Clifford reports, that timetable suits one side more than the other.
Emerging from day one of Brexit talks, EU chief negotiator Michel Barnier reminded the UK that the clock is ticking for a deal to be struck before a March 2019 deadline. The UK seems to have already backed down on one point. Prime Minister Theresa May had insisted trade negotiations should begin immediately, but Barnier revealed the EU's preferred timescale was the one to be followed.
And we agreed on priorities for the negotiation. In the first step, we will deal with the most pressing issues. We must lift the uncertainty caused by Brexit. In the second step, we will scope our future partnership.
These first most pressing issues include an agreement on the rights of some 3 million EU nationals living in the UK, as well as the 1 million Britons scattered across the EU. Meanwhile, British Brexit Minister David Davis struck an optimistic note on day one's progress.
I think we should start by recognising the very productive discussions that we've had today. And I've been encouraged by the constructive approach that both sides have taken. We've laid a solid foundation for future discussions with an ambitious but eminently achievable timetable.
Davis said Ireland had been high on the day's agenda. Both sides are keen to avoid a hard border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. However, how this can be resolved will be linked to what's decided for the rest of EU-UK trade. The pair said they aim to have a week of negotiations every month, using the time in between to exchange proposals.
Well, let's take you over to Mali now, where a recently formed branch of Al-Qaeda has claimed responsibility for an attack that left 5 dead on Sunday. Gunmen struck a resort where soldiers with the EU mission to Mali were holidaying. Laurent Bechdecker reports.
Waking up from a nightmare. Helicopters were still flying over Le Campement Monday morning as they searched for remaining survivors. It's through this gate that a jihadist commando burst in Sunday evening and started shooting at clients, most of them foreigners.
I saw 2 terrorists. They screamed Allah Akbar. They were armed. They started to shoot. There were about 15 people in the pool. They all started running for the hills.
As another group of assailants stormed the facility, several soldiers who were there on leave reportedly grabbed their weapons and started firing back. The attackers fled to a nearby hill, taking over 30 hostages with them. The resort's layout, a vast sprawl of houses spread across several acres, made it difficult for special forces to intervene, even if security had been beefed up in recent years.
Safety measures were taken. There was no wall here before, no gate. Le campement was an open area.
Malian special counter-terrorism forces launched their assault at nightfall, killing all 4 assailants and freeing 32 hostages. The country's security minister also said 5 suspects had been arrested on Monday. Mali has been on high alert since a deadly terrorist attack against the Radisson Blu Hotel left 20 people dead in November 2015. Earlier this month, the U.S. Embassy in Bamako had warned of a possible increased threat of attacks against Westerners.
An American student who was released by North Korea after more than a year in captivity has died in his home city of Cincinnati. 22-year-old Otto Warmbier was held in North Korea after being convicted of subversion. Anka Ula reports on his family's response.
Otto Warmbier called it the worst mistake of his life, and now it has cost him his life. A week after the 22-year-old American returned home from North Korea in a coma, his family announced that their son had died.
It's our sad duty to report that our son, Otto Warmbier, has completed his journey home. Surrounded by his loving family, Otto died today at 2:20 p.m.
Warmbier was sentenced to 15 years hard labor back in March for allegedly stealing a propaganda poster while in Pyongyang on an organized tour. The college student wept at his trial, which reportedly lasted less than an hour.
I beg that you see how I am only human. How I have made the worst mistake of my life.
Last Tuesday, Warmbier was medically evacuated to the U.S., where doctors said he was in a state of unresponsive wakefulness, with extensive loss of brain tissue in all regions of his brain. President Donald Trump took credit for Warmbier's release last week. On Monday, he expressed condolences to the young man's family.
He spent a year and a half in North Korea. A lot of bad things happened, but at least we got him home to be with his parents. It's a brutal regime, and we'll be able to handle it.
3 American citizens remain detained in North Korea. The U.S. government accuses North Korea of using them as political pawns, while North Korea says Washington is sending spies to overthrow its regime.
And finally, he's flown high in the polls. Well, now Emmanuel Macron is flying high in the sky too. The new French president opened the Paris Air Show earlier from up above. Roundup Abbas has more.
It was more than just a flying visit for the French president as he touched down in Paris for the 52nd Air Show. Emmanuel Macron launched the event by making his grand descent from the skies in an Airbus A400 military transport plane, representing the best of France. The biannual event allows the biggest and the best in the world of defence aviation to showcase their finest military hardware. The multi-billion-dollar trade show allows the world's armies to strengthen their arsenal with the latest advancements in aviation innovation. President Macron visited the French space agency CNES Pavilion, which is working on development projects with NASA.
What we're doing here this week is we're working with our international partners like we always do on a lot of the science missions, kind of talking about our budget from the United States, what we saw, and how we're going to continue this constant involvement we've had with our European partners for several years. So we're excited about that partnership and ready to keep it going.
Among the finest being featured at this year's show are these stealthy, high-tech F-35 fighter jets.
It's such a fantastic airplane that we want to get out there and showcase the capability to all of our European partners and our NATO allies, to reassure them that we are committed to NATO 100% and that we've got the capability to respond to any action necessary.
The Paris Air Show is the biggest in the world and was launched in 1909. It's held at Le Bourget Airport, where Charles Lindbergh completed the first ever solo flight between New York and Paris in 1927. An estimated 200,000 member visitors are expected to attend the air show, which runs to the 25th of June. That's in addition to the 150,000 industry professionals from over 2,000 companies.
And that's it from me for this update. I'll be back in 15 minutes with all the latest. If you can't wait until then, though, remember you can find all the stories we've been talking about and many more on our website. That's www.france24.com. See you shortly.